Is Victor Law. What a picky ponky month that we are going to have. Yes, that is Kenya for you. Karibu sana to the show. A lot happened yesterday at the Supreme Court. Several questions were asked and several questions were also posed to the lawyers representing the petitioner there. And somebody will say that they were tough questions, as well as the petitioners also asking their questions to, raising questions to the IEBC, who actually got the bigger chunk of the blame game there and accusations leveled against him at the Supreme Court. Today is the second day, and we'll be heading there at 9 a.m. when the sittings will resume for that live coverage. So be so sure to catch that event live from the Supreme Court. We'll be discussing more, this and more, later on in the program. But for now, today is a men's affair. And the gentleman, Ben Troy, is on the other side. Ben, Piki Ponky, good morning.
Good morning, Ward. You said his Ward?
Wodolo, yes.
Wodolo.
Son of Olo.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, bro.
Yes, today is a men's day, and of course, we will be focusing a lot on what is happening at the Apex Court. Today being the second day of full hearing at the Supreme Court, and we're expecting a lot because even in Proverbs, I think it's 18:17 talks about he who gives his submissions first should wait for the respondents. If you read, we will see that even the Bible talked about giving each side an opportunity to be heard. And today, President-elect will be heard at IEBC because Kenyans want the truth, right?
Yeah.
I'll be coming back with the news. We'll be leaning a lot on the presidential petition currently ongoing at the Apex Court. I'm Ben Troy Njue. This is the news. We begin at the Supreme Court, where the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, dissenting 4 commissioners, have poked holes on the president results released on the 15th of August by the Commission's chairperson, Wafula Chebukati. Lawyers representing the 4, Paul Nyamondi, Paul Moite, and Mansour Issa, claimed Chebukati excluded commissioners in the constitutional process, only assigning them protocol roles, and that they find it hard to ascertain if indeed any of the presidential candidates attained the 50+1 votes cast to be declared winner.
The 4 dissenting commissioners who have been named as respondents in the presidential election petition want the court to nullify the presidential election, claiming they were not part of the process. Lawyers Paul Moite and Issa Mansour, representing Juliana Cherera, and the 4 dissenting IBC commissioners, claim the move not to tally the 27 constituencies are enough grounds to nullify the election.
I did the chairman refuse to put on those results and to verify the numbers that were being read to the nation. The second question that you'll see that arises in terms of the process of verification and tallying, that has been covered by some of the parties that have submitted today. You'd note that when that process reached the tail end, the 27 constituencies that had not been announced, had not been publicly confirmed to have been verified. And in fact, when you look at the affidavit of Commissioner Wanderi, he says he had taken a break because he had been there overnight. When he came back, the first expectation was that these results would be confirmed, they had been verified, and that they had been announced to all the agents. The chairman takes the position there was no constitutional requirement, or he had no legal requirement to do that. No, he had. Because the Constitution requires transparency and accountability. That is the process that takes place at the National Tallying Center. It is not a perfunctory exercise. It is not a ceremony. It is a constitutional process.
The official position of the Commission is as per the views and affidavits of a majority of the commissioners. And that has to be so in law. The reason being that under the Constitution, and in fact under the statutes, The IEBC is a corporate entity. Therefore, in the absence of consensus, its decisions as an institution are by the majority.
So that on the elections day, and we have said 6 hours, you needed to know how many of us voted. The moment that information was not provided, the system and the process was exposed to anything could happen. And actually by the 15th of August, the worst, and all that could go wrong actually went wrong on the 15th of August. And therefore this is why we are saying these violations were not just minor violations. They were violations that indeed went into the heart of what is before this court, the disputed elections.
They claim the affidavits by IEBC chairperson that the 4 commissioners were forcing a runoff are false.
So they were demanding of their chair, you cannot bring a paper here and tell us that these have been verified and tallied by the chief executive. The work of the chief executive is to implement decisions of the commission. He is not part of the commission, any more than the registrar, the chief registrar, implements, or any registrar of the High Court, implements the decision of the judges, not the other way around. So they were saying, we need to tally and verify the results in respect of these 27 constituencies. And the chair would not allow that, which was typical of the relationship between the chair and these 4 commissioners.
Results that were announced on the 15th of August, the system that had been put in place, the person was in charge of them. It was not the commission, it was not IEBC, but that is the chairman. The chairman is the one who can be able to answer most of those questions. The results that were announced, his position is that those were not the results of the commission, those were the results of the chairman.
The 4 dissenting commissioners on the affidavits submitted that Chebukati announced unverified results despite conflicting figures in some Forms 34A and Forms 34B.
The commissioners were expected to ascertain and satisfy themselves that whatever was being put into 34C was a true reflection of the contents of 34A and 34B, but they were never given that opportunity.
They further submitted that IEBC chairperson arbitrarily deployed and transferred county returning officers and rebuffed commissioners who asked why the screens at the Bomas of Kenya were not continuously displaying cumulative vote.
While we are seeing all this being displayed, and remember that during Bomas, the display to show Kenyans that these are the results that were coming in, this is how the figures were adding up, that was disabled at some stage. So that what effectively this meant, that the true purpose of Article 138 ends up being defeated. Defeated in the sense that for the winner goes and declares that I had the most numbers in accordance to Chebukati.
The lawyers further argued that postponement of elections in 8 areas was not a unanimous decision by IEBC, but a decision by a few to favor the petitioner's opponent.
And still on the petition, Busia Senator-elect Okia Omtata has produced calculations he claims indicate that William Ruto did not get the 50% plus 1 vote to be declared president-elect on the August of 9th, the presidential vote. Omtata, who is a petitioner himself argued that there were numerous mathematical errors and that 140,138 votes were untallied.
Members of the Honorable Court.
Unlike other petitioners, Busia Senator-elect and activist Okia Omtata decided to represent himself in what is called pro se in legal terms.
I will rely on the petition we filed jointly with the 3 others.
Omtata arguing that there were numerous mathematical errors in the August 9th presidential election and that no candidate attained the 50% plus 1 vote threshold as declared by the IEBC chair Wafula Chebukati.
In the scenario, no candidate acquires 50% plus 1 vote. You get that William Ruto gets 49.99692402%. So Raila gets 48.372118662.
Omtata saying there were differences in the valid votes and the total of votes allocated to the candidates, saying it was not an innocent mistake.
It is a situation whereby somebody has left a trail that they were working backwards from a certain figure which they had, and they were working backwards, and so they began to get that.
In his submission, Omtata questioned why some KIMS kits were still transmitting results hours after the polls closed.
The KIMS kits are transmitting some 23 hours later, still transmitting data, the day after the voting, and we know that it's only elders where elections were taking place. Now, when you analyze that data, you find that 508,647 ballots are added on the 10th. And you saw Land Council Willis show that the audit of the register had almost the same number of ghost voters.
He now wants the Supreme Court to declare the percentages allocated to the presidential candidates null and void, terming the Form 34C as an invalid document which should not be allowed to stand.
Now, the 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court is seeking clarification on the grounds submitted for nullification of the presidential election by the first petitioner Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. In their summary of proceedings from the first day of trial, Judges Isaac Lenaola, Philomena Mwilu, Njoki Ndongo, and Smoking Wanjala sought to know, among others, how vote suppression affected only the presidential election and the turnout in areas where elections were postponed. The point at which the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission became dysfunctional, and why 4 dissenting commissioners did not protest against roles assigned.
I don't understand much about ICT, but I presume that at the polling station, when the KIMS kit takes the image, these forms are written in handwriting. How can you explain then, so that I can understand, how a form can be changed in handwriting? This is not typing, it's in handwriting. All these forms are being uploaded and changed, different people's handwritings. How does that happen?
Allocating such roles to commissioners. Why didn't they protest? Is this chairperson we are dealing with such a terror that nobody can face him and tell him you can't do this? Because now what we are hearing, these are serious disclosures.
Our constitution, I believe, has never contemplated and envisaged such a serious situation, such a lacuna. And you know, we are all peaceful, loving people. We believe in the rule of law. We believe in constitutionalism. How is that possible? What are your proposals practically on the ground? If suppose this was done, how do you want us to navigate and apply the law? Is that possible within the law? These are serious issues. These are serious remedies you're asking for. In the meantime, what is the de facto state? What is the status quo? Is that underpinned under the law? These are the questions that we would like to ask, because as you know, in Kenya we have never had a state of emergency, and we all never contemplated, and I don't wish to think about it.
If every process that was undertaken in this process has so far been impugned, are we nevertheless to declare a winner? Are the figures, in the event that we arrive at figures that show that either the current president-elect has more votes than others, and or the petitioner in petition number 5, in fact, has more numbers, what are we to do? Are we still to declare? Irrespective of all the other processes having been impugned as you have submitted to us today.
To address us on, because we have an Election Offences Act, so that if somebody has committed an election offense, they ought to have been charged and tried before the court with the jurisdiction. In this case, I know we gazetted some magistrates to deal with election offenses, and my question is whether we wouldn't be usurping the powers of the magistrates if we have to make any order regarding election offenses.
Moving on, the scrutiny of 45 presidential election ballot boxes from 15 polling stations is underway at the Supreme Court. The exercise, undertaken under supervision of IEBC and Supreme Court Registrar, has so far scrutinized and tallied only 7 ballot boxes from Mvita constituency. Ben Chumba witnessed the scrutiny process and filed the following report.
71, 72, 73.
Under heavy presence of police drawn from GSU and administration police, the tallying and scrutinizing of ballot boxes from 15 polling stations in 4 counties kicked off at the Supreme Court Sub-Registry at Forodha House in Milimani Law Courts.
So very fast, so that we are not there for a long time.
Lawyers representing Raila Odinga, William Ruto, IBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and IBC commissioners all present to witness the exercise.
So are we saying that we have not accounted, or there is an unaccounting of 3, 5, 2?
In the exercise undertaken under supervision of IBC and Supreme Court Registrar, the court officers opened ballot boxes from 7 polling stations in Mvita constituency, counted the number of votes inside the ballot boxes, tallied the votes cast against the number of votes received by each presidential candidate.
You're dealing with whose? William Samoei Ruto. Okay, they are in bunches of? No, we'll count.
Odinga Raila, 108, 108. Ruto William, 124, 124.
The court officers further scrutinized contents of Forms 34A to establish whether they were signed and stamped by the respective returning officers. So far, out of 7 ballot boxes scrutinized and tallied, the officers noted that in several ballot boxes, Forms 34As were missing and some were not signed or stamped by the respective returning officers.
Is any objection to what he has said? Can we move on? We are good? Let's close. Seal, we go to the next box.
The team will undertake a similar exercise for a number of polling stations in Kericho, Nandi and Nyandarua. The Supreme Court Registrar has until Thursday to finish the exercise and submit its report.
78, 79. That is for the second batch. Going to
Still at the Supreme Court of Kenya has dismissed requests from 4 petitioners to have ballot materials from more polling stations scrutinized in the ongoing verification exercise of 15 polling stations, citing time constraint in the orders. Justice Isaac Lenaola rejected a plea by Azimio la Umoja presidential candidate Raila Odinga, who wanted the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to provide Forms 34As and 34Bs from 517 polling stations, warning that this will be creating a new case. Justice Lenaola also directed that IEBC to provide Forms 34As and 34As Book 2 from only 41 polling stations as requested in the affidavits of Celestine Anyango Opio.
Hours after scrutiny of ballot materials began ahead of the 48-hour ultimatum, the Supreme Court 7-judge bench came out to clarify directions given on Order Number 7 on vote scrutiny and recount after it emerged that parties involved were unable to agree on how to conduct the exercise. Justice Isaac Lenaola, in his ruling on Wednesday afternoon, dismissed a request by 4 petitioners to have the vote materials under scrutiny increased.
We thought, in our wisdom, that order is specific to contested polling stations.
Justice Lenaola, citing time constraints, put aside requests by the first petitioner Raila Odinga to have the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission provide forms 32As and 34As from 517 polling stations, Otieno Ogola's request for 229 polling stations, Njoki Mboshe for 238 polling stations, and Kelef Khalifa.
I believe the petitioners, first petitioners, have asked for 517 stations. Obviously, with the time we have, and you've already spent the whole day haggling on this, 24 hours or 48 hours are gone, it is now impossible to comply with that order.
The Supreme Court has directed IEBC to only provide forms 32As and 34As Book 2 from only 41 polling stations in affidavit of Celestine Anyango Opio for scrutiny, saying any additions will be creating a new case.
That is the only way that exercise can be can have meaning. And that those forms will be a sample for which you can submit in accordance with your pleadings. We cannot allow you, we said, to go outside your pleadings, because what's happening now, we are creating a new case out of these forms. So please stick to your pleadings, and once we get those the report on those forms, you submit on them in the context of your pleadings.
Concerned parties have been given an ultimatum of Thursday 2 p.m. to have completed the exercise.
Very well, and that story takes us to our first break, but don't go away. When we come back, we'll run through more stories, including Uhuru's first public appearance since the August 9 polls. Don't go away.
To the Second Chance TV game show.
Tough questions.
Virunga National Park is located within which mountain ranges?
Aberdare.
Aberdare? Is that your final answer?
Tough challenges.
3, 2, 1, go!
It's a survival for the smartest.
10 seconds to go. Who is the current president of Malawi?
Jakaya Kikwete.
Wrong answer. That is the wrong answer. Does it border to the east? Nakuru County. Nakuru County, you get 2,000 bob.
Premiering soon on Channel 1.
Yani ina maana nchi ama mji ikiwa na amani, unakuta hata nchi zingine zinawadhamini, zinawafadhili sana, zinawaaminia.
Muislamu wa kisawasawa ni yule ambaye anadumisha amani, anaepukana na maneno ambayo yanaweza kupelekea kuvurugika kwa amani, na vitendo vyake pia huwa vinahusika na kuhifadhi amani.
I will never engage or even consider participating in such kind of petty business.
Petty business? Then why are you asking?
Forget I even asked.
You people, you don't know what is going on out there.
What's wrong? What's going on?
Bosira has gone Uwashi.
Huh?
He has gone Banana Garisi.
How dare you?
How dare me what?
How can you compare my executive business with that of a petty cow's business?
Like seriously, Atito, where do you think you're going?
I'm going to save the world.
Save the world from what?
From drought and starvation, of course, from Bosire. Doka.
Well, welcome back to the news. Let's proceed. President Uhuru Kenyatta on Wednesday made his first public appearance after the August 9 presidential election. The president, who was accompanied by Azimio la Umoja Coast leaders led by outgoing Governor Ali Hassan Joho, took a walk along the streets of Mombasa, greeting residents who had crowded along the road. He, however, did not address the crowd. Earlier on, the president had a closed-door meeting with the leaders at the Mombasa Governor's office.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has been keeping a low profile since the end of the campaign period. Amid his silence, calls have been made for him to acknowledge the president election results and congratulate his deputy, the president-elect Dr. William Ruto. On Wednesday, he re-emerged in Mombasa in the company of Azimio la Umoja Coast leaders, led by outgoing Mombasa Governor Hassan Joho and the Governor-elect Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir. Details of the meeting they held prior to the street tour remained scant, as it was closed door. Other leaders present were Mombasa Senator Mohamed Faki, Mvita Member of Parliament-elect Mohamed Saud Mashele, and Bakassi East Member of Parliament Babu Owino, Badi 12 Jomvu, Naisula Lesudo of Samburu, Nairobi Woman Representative Esther Pasares, and her former Muranga counterpart Sabina Chege.
Let's now shift focus to matter security, where police officers in Limuru, Kiambu County, have in their custody 5 suspects implicated in the murder of their friend. The body of the deceased, which bore visible head injuries, was discovered by residents dumped on the roadside.
Limuru Sub-County Police Commander Aileen Mola said the 5 suspects were arrested after the body of their friend was found down by the roadside along Limuru Nazareth Road in Karabaini village.
Upon inquiry, we found out that the person had been killed by known persons. So officers also proceeded there where the known persons were residing, and they got to arrest 5 persons who are in the cell now. We are processing them for court.
Mola said the deceased had visible head injuries and the suspect are helping investigators to establish the circumstances leading to their friend's demise.
The deceased was beaten up using blunt objects and stones. The investigations are ongoing, and once the case has been taken over by the DCIO, and once that is done, then we will be arraigning them in court in due course.
The body was taken to Tigoni Level 4 Hospital, awaiting a post-mortem to determine the cause of the death.
And down at the coast, patients in Kilifi County Referral Hospital are lamenting congestion, poor service and lack of medicine and critical supplements that have forced them to stay longer in the wards. The sorry state of the hospital got the attention of the new governor, Gideon Mung'aro, who had made a tour of the facility, promising the patients that his administration will address the challenges immediately.
Governor Mung'aro, who visited the county's referral hospital, said he was banking on the swearing-in of the Kilifi members of the county assembly, who will then pass a supplementary budget to cater for the shortcomings in the health department. He said they will use available facilities to reduce congestion in wards and ensure patients do not share beds.
Kwa sababu hospitali haina vyuma, hayo ni baadhi ya matatizo yameelezwa na madaktari. Katika budget inayokuja utakisha katika vifaa vinanunuliwa vingine vya vyuma. Hasa kwa wale wagonjwa ambao wanatoka familia ambazo hazijiwezi kabisa. Isiwe kwamba kama mtu hana shilingi kwa mfuko hawezi kutubiwa.
In Embu, Governor Cecily Mbarire has formed a 6-member task force to come up with proposals and solutions aimed at reforming the ailing health sector in the region. The task force, chaired by the retired former Director of Medical Services at the Ministry of Health, Dr. Francis Kimani, will execute its mandate within a month.
My key emphasis is medical services, public health and public service. The task force has 1 month's mandate to come up with proposals and solutions towards revamping the health sector, providing clean environment in our towns, and reforming our public service in order to enhance service delivery.
In the meantime, Nakuru Level 5 Hospital has waived unpaid bills amounting to 5 million shillings. Most of these bills have been pending for years, some dating back to March 2020. Governor Susan Keheka said she met the hospital's board on the waiver of the accrued bills. Speaking at the hospital after making a fact-finding tour of various health facilities within the county, Keheka said her administration would allocate the hospital more funds to cover for the waiver.
And I want to make sure that as a county, we have a functioning healthcare. And part of it is having good facilities with human resource, equipment, and patients who are well taken care of.
Moving on, the National Mufti under the Kenya Muslim National Advisory Council, KEMNAC, has called on the political class to prepare to peacefully accept the Supreme Court judgment on the ongoing presidential election petition. They say they have faith in the 7-judge bench to deliver a fair judgment.
While addressing the media in Mombasa today, Sheikh Omar Buya, the National Mufti, who is a legal expert empowered to make rulings on Islamic religious matters, said that peace should prevail in the country irrespective of the forthcoming Supreme Court ruling.
Hatuegemei mirengo ya kisiasa, bali tunapenda na kushindikiza uongozi bora na viongozi wazuri. Tutafanya kazi na kiongozi yoyote yule kwa nia yetu njema na umoja wetu mkubwa, kwa sababu sisi tumeenea Kenya nzima kutoka Mandera hadi Lamu.
In the meantime, doctors who were sacked 40 months ago by the immediate former county government of Laikipia have signed a back-to-work formula after they were reinstated by the governor, Joshua Irongo's administration. They agreed to withdraw all CAT causes against Laikipia County Government Service Board, which they had accused of illegal dismissal. The new county administration undertook to pay the doctors their arrears of 27 months after the negotiations, where they dropped 13 months as goodwill. Governor Irungu said all the arrears will be paid by February next year through a supplementary budget.
Tumekuta budget ikuwa imetengenezwa, so I will be working towards I'll start putting them. One, tumekubaliana kuanzia tarehe 1, wale watakuja tarehe 1 Septemba kesho waanze kazi, mshahara watalipwa mwisho wa mwezi.
Elsewhere, the Kisii County Secondary School's Music Festival kicked off at Kisii School. The extravaganza, which helps learners appreciate the diversity of culture through song and dance, was disrupted by the COVID-19 pandemic. 87 participants from both primary and secondary schools are taking part, from where winners will proceed to the regional finals to be held at Iringa Secondary in Homa Bay County from September 6, 2022. While the national finals will be staged at Maseno School in Kisumu.
Around 87 schools are participating in this KMF, Kisii County chapter. And we appreciate the teachers and principals for allowing the students to come here.
Finally, a section of civil societies based in Migori County is calling upon the Independent and Electoral Boundaries Commission to set aside more funds for civic education of voters in the next general election. At a stakeholder meeting in Migori County to evaluate the recently held general election, the CSOs said the IEBC performed well overall but fell short on civic education.
Many agents and many key players in the exercise never knew their task. They did not know what to do. especially when it comes to the polling and also observation of what they're supposed to be doing. Some people took advantage of the illiteracy level of some of the voters and misguided them on who to vote for.
Now, rising prices of basic commodities have pushed up rate of inflation to 8.5%, which is a 62-month high on account of effects of prolonged drought and a weak shilling. Data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicate that the prices of maize, rice and sugar shot up, contributing to the cost of living rising above the government's medium-term target of between 2.5 and 7.5% for the third successful consecutive month. I beg your pardon.
And households will continue to dig deeper in their pockets as the cost of living continues to rise. Even though the government has targeted to keep the rate of inflation between 2.5 to 7.5%, the overall year-on-year inflation has this month remained outside this targeted band, making it the third consecutive month that inflation is above 7.5%. Latest data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicate that the rate of inflation is at 8.5%, rising for the sixth month in a row to a 60-month high. This month's inflation figure is only higher than the one recorded in June 2017, when biting drought had pushed up the rate of inflation to 9.21%. KNBS says even though there were notable commodity price reductions such as carrots at 6.4%, onions at 2.4% and Irish potatoes at 90 basis points, the reductions were not large enough to offset increases of other sampled goods. The data shows that this month there was price increases for maize flour that rose 4.7%, sugar that was costlier by 4.6%, mangoes were up 4.1%, rice increased 2.9%, maize rose 2.6%, bar soap rose 1.5%, and the retail price of alcoholic beverages rose 1.2% for beers and 80 basis points for wine. The move by the government to subsidize fuel prices helped mute the impact of the overall cost of living.
Elsewhere, Kenya is seeking to increase avocado sales to Armenia as it seeks to access the Russian market indirectly. The Horticultural Crop Directorate Director Benjamin Tito says Kenya halted direct avocado sales to Russia due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, instead opting to use neighboring countries to access the Russian market, which is the largest consumer of Kenya's forte avocado variety.
Since the Russian-Ukraine war broke out early this year, Kenya has lost 90% of avocado sales to Russia, with farmers forced to halve the price of the fuerte avocado variety prices. The Horticulture Crops Directorate now says Kenya stopped direct avocado shipments to Russia due to the war and the trade embargo placed on Russia, and is instead seeking to reclaim the market indirectly, shipping through neighboring countries. Armenia has been earmarked as one of the potential countries that could act as a link to the Russian market. Kenya is seeking to increase its avocado export to Armenia, which as at 29th August imported 49,536 kilos of Kenyan avocado, valued at 5.4 million shillings. This as Netherlands still remains the largest importer of Kenyan avocado, with the European nation importing 20 million kilos of the fruit, valued at 3 billion shillings. The United Arab Emirates is the second largest market for Kenyan avocado, importing 8 million kilos of the fruit, valued at 1.045 billion shillings. France was the third largest avocado market for Kenya, importing 6.3 million kilos of the fruit, valued at 1 billion shillings. Hong Kong and China are the new markets for fresh avocados, with Kenya exporting 814,000 kilos and 133,000 kilos of the fresh fruit respectively. In total, Kenya exported 54 million kilos of the fruit globally, worth 8 billion shillings.
Equity Bank is counting on a 6-pillar plan to grow its customer base and deepen intra-African trade. The bank says it will invest close to 700 billion shillings in agriculture, trade, small businesses, technology, manufacturing and socio-environmental transformation. Equity Group Chief Executive Dr. James Mwangi says the investment will help create 50 million jobs directly and indirectly.
Bank says the plan, dubbed African Recovery and Resilience Plan, will help create linkages by mapping agricultural ecosystems and value chains by financing agriculture players. The plan will further seek to empower subsistence farmers to cultivate commercially viable foods. The bank will work with players in both the public and the private sectors to tackle agricultural challenges in a holistic manner. The six-pillar plan also targets to boost intra-regional trade by collaborating with freight forwarders for ease of storage and movement of large amounts of goods from one African country to another. Once implemented, the plan will help create 25 million direct jobs and 25 million indirect jobs.
Brenda Mutai Jerotich,
Equity Group Chief Executive James Mwangi further says the strategy will help create linkages between countries, coordinating trade and financing suppliers, which will help create a favorable environment for manufacturing to thrive.
We can handle maybe 20 systemic issues of the world if we chose to. And if we changed 20 major issues that trouble the world, I believe the world will have been changed, because the principle of the 80-20 rules still applies. It's not how many things you do, it's how you prioritize and do the most important and significant ones that makes the 80% of the difference.
The bank, through its Equity Leaders program, has commissioned the airlift of 73 students who will be joining 48 global universities through scholarships under the Leadership Development Pillar.
In other news, the Bank of Kigali Group has announced a 24.5% net income growth to 3.3 billion shillings during the first 6 months of this year, driven by increased operating income as a result of post-COVID resurgence of economic activities. BK Group Chief Financial Officer Nathalie Mpaka says the lender foresees an upward trajectory for the rest of the year, despite Rwanda's current double-digit inflation rate.
During the first 6 months of this year, the Bank of Kigali Group saw its net loans and advances increasing 10.6% to 116.5 billion shillings. From this, the lender earned 10.63 billion shillings in total interest income, representing an 8.0% year-on-year growth. This was mainly supported by higher income from loans and advances, which rose 10.3% to 126.15 billion shillings.
We announced a net income growth of 24.5%, which I believe is quite commendable. Overall, we've had a slow half.
On the other hand, total operating costs increased 32.9% to 4.2 billion shillings, which the lender attributes to the shift to core banking system that aided in its digital transformation.
What we all want to see is further consolidation, to have larger banks that can really support the transformation of the country. So at a macro level is something that we welcome. We've seen in the past large deals that us only, Bank of Kigali, could not take on. So we'll be happy in the future to have better capitalized banks so we can share the risks with these banks.
Non-performing loans reduced from 6.6% in 2021 to 5.1% in 2022. The Bank of Kigali CFO Nathalie Mpaka says the lender is still dealing with one-offs, such as a slow macroeconomic recovery that has impacted the group's performance and pressures on interest and inflation rates. Despite this, the total assets grew 3.2% to 188.8 billion shillings, pushing up shareholders' equity by 9.4% to 296.5 billion shillings. The group says, despite the current 16% inflation rate, the bank expects a drop to single digits by the end of this year to power the group's growth.
Still on company financials, the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company posted a 40% increase in net profit to 108 million shillings during the first 6 months of this year. The financier attributes the profits to increased interest earned from investments. So far, the firm has refinanced the construction of 2,475 housing units at a cost of 7 billion shillings.
Affordable housing remains a major challenge in Kenya due to the high cost of mortgages, which averages at 17% per annum. This has seen the percentage mortgage to gross domestic product stagnate at 2.7%. Kenya has a housing backlog estimated at 1.85 million units, which is growing at a rate of 200,000 units per year. To spur the market, the government established the Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company in 2017, whose main objective is a provision of long-term funding at a single-digit rate to lenders to enable them scale up their mortgage lending operations. Under a memorandum of understanding with its financiers, who include the International Finance Corporation and the World Bank, KMRC lends to financial institutions at an interest rate of 5%, allowing them to on-lend the same at a single-digit rates to mortgage customers earning less than 150,000 shillings per month. During the first 6 months of this year, the company earned 53 million shillings in interest from loans to primary mortgage lenders. So far, the firm has disbursed 7 billion shillings to 9 primary mortgage lenders, financing 2,475 housing units. During the first 6 months of this year, the company's total assets increased from 8 billion to 14.8 billion shillings due to a 192% increase in loans to banks, SACCOs and microfinances. Elsewhere, Old Mutual Holding PLC posted a loss before tax of 375 million shillings in the first 6 months of 2022, compared to a profit before tax of 552 million reported in a similar period in 2021.
We have had very good top-line growth in all our markets. We have grown faster than the average market performance. However, this has been impacted by the global market conditions, leading to inflation and currency, the depreciation of our local currencies across the East African markets.
The performance was attributed to rising levels of inflation globally, with central banks adopting a tightening monetary stance in response to the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the rising global oil prices. Net investment income was down 34%, driven by equity market falls and rising interest rates that impacted equity and bond valuations within the business.
We are, as management, focusing on stabilizing or strengthening our balance sheet, and some of those initiatives will be completed by in H1 next year, and those will reduce the volatility.
Now let's shift gears to sports. The National Olympic Committee of Kenya has boosted the national boxing team hit squad, which is preparing to compete in the Africa Championship in Mozambique, which doubles up as qualifiers for the 2023 World Championship. The provisional team of 9 boxers is set to depart on Wednesday next week for the games, which will be held from the 7th to the 19th of September. Among the boxers in the team are defending Africa lightweight champion Nick Okoth, Shafi Bakari, David Karanja, Samuel Njau and Martin Odwor. At the last Africa Championship in 2017 in Brazzaville, Congo, Kenya finished 8th with 1 gold and 4 bronze medals.
The journey to 2024 Paris Olympics. So bila take part inakuwa ni ngumu sana. Tunasema tunatoa shukrani zetu kwa kamati ya Olimpiki kwa kuweza kustep in na kuwezesha kwenda kushiriki katika mashindano hayo.
That the process of qualification and participation of Olympics starts 4 years before the Olympics. As a country, we were delayed. We normally do a lot of things in the last 12 months. At that point, it becomes extremely difficult for a lot of our athletes to gain the required points. It also becomes very difficult for some of the sports where they need long-term planning, long-term preparation.
To athletics now, where newly crowned Commonwealth Games champion Ferdinand Omanyala clocked 10.18 seconds to finish second at the 2022 Top Athletes Lucerne in Switzerland. United States Marvin Bracey emerged victorious 0.01 seconds ahead of Omanyala, who was competing for the first time since he won the Commonwealth Games gold medal. The African record holder now shifts focus to Germany, where he will compete in the ISTAF 2022 in Berlin on the 4th of September before winding up his season in Croatia with the Memorial of Boris Hansekovic event. Elsewhere, Kenya's Brenda Chebet and Sela Busienei finished second and third respectively in the women's 3,000 meters at the 2022 Valio City of the Oak Rovereto athletics meeting in Italy. Japan's Nozomi Tanaka emerged victorious in 8 minutes, 41 seconds and 93 seconds. Collins Kipruto was beaten to the third spot in the men's 800 meters. And yesterday, several matches were on the cards in the English Premier League, where Manchester City thrashed Nottingham Forest 6-0. Arsenal had a great victory, winning 2-1 against Aston Villa. West Ham and Tottenham played out to a 1-1 draw. Liverpool beat Newcastle 2-1. Crystal Palace and Brentford drew 1-1. Fulham beat Brighton 2-1. Southampton beat Chelsea 2-1, and Leeds and Everton played out to a 1-1 draw. Tonight, there's a match on the cards: Manchester United versus Leicester City. That's where we take another break, but we'll be right back.
There. Good boys gone bad. Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king of clout chasing.
How does a gospel artist make money? Jaguar wept again.
Anaweza kuwa celeb, anaweza kuwa na followers, but it's a time for artists to make bank.
Yes. How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories.
They do not make... Slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
Mashallah.
You sing about serious issues, it will not trend. If you sing about Adhiambo C.
Now.
Bahati hata kuwa na machozi. Willy Paul ndio alikuwa anatoa machozi.
For your beat these boys with stones. Let's all be logic. Yesu ashukangi chini analeta pesa.
Musicians are missing the point.
Do we sip water?
You are watching Pop Culture with Adhiambo with a Y.
This is the way we are going to invade your sitting rooms once every week. Allah.
And this is what we mean. The originals. Lipua Lipua. Veve Productions. Orchestra Kiam. And so much more.
Mirindimo ya ngoma za rumba kutoka pembe zote za Afrika. Zilizopepea, zinazopepea kwa kiasi ambacho hutang'atuka ng'o from your sitting room.
Wow, Buzi Buziana, Scholar Miel, Betty Beast, Fifi Mofude, among others.
Bridge over Congo with Simeon Mfumu Kimbangu.
And Winnie Marie-Jose on KBC Channel 1.
Zambia Sambela Kate, Ako Sambela Nani.
God does not worship. To whom will he worship?
Honorable Kajos Mafu.
You will only find peace and forgiveness when you confess what you've done. You can't keep hiding it.
Ileana, will we meet again?
Of course. Why were you talking to the new partner of this hotel?
What? He's the new partner? Never.
Stop it, Nuria!
Oh, my goodness.
And if they happen to allow me to get close to them and be a part of their lives, I will be delighted.
Have some good news for you. We're officially dating.
All right, now let's take a look at what we have on the front page of our local dailies. Let me start with the Star newspaper. On the front page, Raila, Chebukati PA altered vote figures. Chebukati PA altered vote figures. Odinga says that hackings yielded an unverifiable, inaccurate, and therefore invalid result. That is the story here on the front page. You can take a look at that story on the Star newspaper. Still, we have got lawyers who represented the petitioner. We have got James Orengo, Feroz Noroji, we have Julie Soweto, Kibe Mungai, and Willis Otieno. It was a tense moment yesterday as the lawyers submitted on behalf of the petitioner. Kenyatta holds closed-door meeting with Azimio leaders. This happened yesterday in Mombasa as he made his first public appearance since he was last seen voting on 9th of August. Yesterday was the first time he was seen in public in Mombasa in the company of Joho Abdul Samad and the likes of Babu Wino are there, Sabina Chege and other leaders. More so those people who are allied to the Azimio La Umoja wing. So what was discussed is not known. IG Mutyambai moved to private ward. Kenya begins rare brain-bone disorder scans. Let me give you that story by about the IG Mutyambai. He says that IG Mutyambai moved to private ward. Police boss suffered a stroke but is responding well to treatment. Police IG, doctors treating him said that the pressure in his brain is stabilizing and he is responding well to medication. He collapsed at his home on Thursday last week. There are plans to fly him out of the country depending on how he responds to medication. And of course, once that happened, a stroke occurred when, okay, let me just get it. Now, after that, he delegated his duties to his deputy, that is Noor Gabo, who is now the acting IG. Gabo, he was rushed to the Aga Khan Hospital's HDU on Thursday night. The HDU is a specialist ward providing intensive care for the patient. So according to the reports, he is responding well. How Uhuru could cripple Wetangula Speaker bid, the president in position to complicate his resignation through delays. President Kenyatta is in a pole position to cripple Bungoma Senator-elect Moses Wetangula's bid to become the next National Assembly Speaker. Now, it has emerged he could play a lethal card to stop the Ford Kenya leader and Kenya Kwanza ally of President-elect William Ruto in his tracks. This is just but some of the hypotheses here, a story that you can take a look and it will be interesting to see. Something that is also quite interesting, which I love, Music Festival back in Kisii County after a 2-year break. Kenya Music Festival is set to resume in secondary schools within Kisii County on Tuesday after a 2-year break due to COVID-19 pandemic. Co-curricular activities back in schools. The festival is normally takes 3 months, has a tight schedule for about 4 weeks compared to the previous years due to the compressed school calendar. And that is exactly what is happening. So I think that is also going to be replicated across the country. Raila Chebukati PA accused server and changed results, part of this, the accusations and points which were laid out by the petitioner's lawyers. Let me give you a quick
summary of what happened. 1, Raila's grounds. No quorum as 4 IEBC commissioners rejected result. Number 2, votes from 27 constituencies not factored in tally. Number 3, inconsistencies in voter turnout numbers. 4, DP Ruto did not meet 50+1% threshold. 5, hackers infiltrated IEBC systems and changed results. Number 6, Forms 34A manipulated before relay to public portal. Number 7, IEBC cannot account for 250,000 votes. Last but not least, ulterior motive in suspended Kakamega and Mombasa elections. And finally, IEBC failure to address Kim's kids' hitches. Those are some of the grounds that Raila laid out. The stories continue here on the subsequent pages. You can also take a look at that story. And lastly, before I hand it over to Ben on the Daily Nation, Raila lawyers, how Ruto was rigged in, citing allegations of organized crime in the management of and administration of elections, including deliberate efforts to infiltrate voter numbers, infiltrate the election agency servers, and alter the format in which election forms were transmitted. Petitioners in the case against the declaration of William Ruto as the president-elect want for Chebukati charged. Take a look at that story. And today is Ruto's lawyers to defend his win. Raila lawyers present their case against Ruto's poll. That was yesterday, the first day of the hearing at the Supreme Court. A full page, actually 2 pages there, of what happened. Numbers tally, but ballot scrutiny reveals missing and blank forms. By the time of, sometimes late in the evening, only 9 out of 45 ballot boxes from the 15 polling stations had been opened and recounted. We're likely to see, and from our reporters there, that is Sarafina and Ben Chumba at the Supreme Court, to give us an update of so far the outcome and whether that is completed. Chebukati, a man under siege in poll battle, IEBC boss accused of creating a fictional office to shield himself from legal scrutiny. How is that? Take a look at that. And finally, 500,000 ghosts voted, Omtata alleges. 500,000 ghosts voted, Omtata alleges. He was there yesterday at the Supreme Court giving an account, on the slide on how the numbers did not add up, and that is how it happened. You can take a look at that story. And finally, here it is, missing Uhuru takes Mombasa by surprise. Nobody saw him going to Mombasa, and boom, he was seen for the first time in public. And that is as far as the Daily Nation and the Star newspaper is concerned. Over to you, Ben.
And when we started out, I started out with the Bible verse, Proverbs 18, verse 17. We say the first to present his case seems right till another comes forward and questions him. Why I say that is because today we are expecting President-elect and the IEBC to defend themselves after Azimio had the day in court. And I will try as much as possible, Vicky, not to repeat what you've said, but looking at the standard tough questions as Raila lays out case from discrepancies, infiltration of IEBC systems to disunity among commissioners. The legal team is trying to convince judges to overturn William Ruto's win. But the judges yesterday did ask some very, very critical questions, and you have mentioned some of those questions. Of course, the calculations of 50+1 forming basis of this divided commission, IEBC contradicting figures. They say there was system reduction of votes cast for Raila, which were added to Ruto in several constituencies. Requirement to declare winner does not give chairman power to tally, verify, and decide the winner. This is something also raised. Forms used in election do not match what IEBC said it would procure. And postponement of governor election in Kakamega and Mombasa gave Ruto an advantage. And the Kim's kit failure also talk about failed in several Raila strongholds and delayed voters, discrepancies in the results, among others. There's some of the issues that have been raised, but as Vicky, you've put it, the judges did ask some very critical questions, talking about how did the voter suppression, they want them to prove. They want also every citizen has a right to participate in an election, but how then do you reconcile argument on Article 89 because constituencies don't vote, citizens vote? That's some of the question or pertinent issues that have been raised by the judges as they seek to try and make the opaque, as the four commissioners said, they are trying to ensure that now we have a transparent result on the same. 2, 3, 4, 5, all talking about the Supreme battle. There is also a profile of the top lawyers, including former AG Githu Muigai. We have seasoned lawyers Kioko Kilukumi, Githure Kindiki, Paul Muite Orengo, Fred Ngatia, and Paul Mwangi, just forming part of the legal council representing both sides. And in total, we have over 100 lawyers, not to mention the other lawyers who are playing the strings from the back as they try to put things into perspectives. And moving on, Omtata also raised about the issue on fictitious votes, as Olo has called them, ghost voters, where he's talking about 1.6 million Kenyans who cast their ballot for the presidential results after the polls closed. 1.6 million. The court would want to know exactly what transpired, because Omtata talking about Kim's kit transmitting results 23 hours way after the elections had already been closed. Of course, there are discrepancies that have been found in the scrutiny of the forms for the 15 polling stations, that those are being recounted. And in the Standard, they have a pictorial here on how the judges, how the lawyers, the security, the ballot boxes, the tallying, and of course Kenyans waiting eagerly to know exactly what is happening. But away from matter supreme, because today is the second day of full hearing, we'll be crossing over a little bit later. But Vicky, I've noticed something that I heard about it on Monday. Families burying their kin in sacks, blame it on poverty. They say they're buying a sack at 50 shillings and they don't even need a church service, and the burial takes about 20 minutes, just to underscore the inflation in the country, the high cost of living. And it's a village in Ndindiroku, village in Kirinyaga County, where they are urging locals to join and help burial welfare groups, because they want their kins to be buried in a dignified manner. Yes, indeed, the games are back. The music festivals for our kids are back. And in Rift Valley, it was no exception, as the Rift Valley Regional Secondary School Music Festival that was supposed to be kicking off yesterday will be kicking off next week. Moving on, Mungaro Tours Ailing Hospital. When it comes to matters health, the governor seems to have started out by checking out the ailing health sector. This is Mungaro in Kilifi County. We have Cecily Mbarire in Embo County, and we've heard of the Nakuru governor also touring the hospital and pledging. And actually, in one of the stories that we ran a little bit earlier, they waived 5 million shillings in bills. And talking of health, a man commits suicide after cancer diagnosis. A 60-year-old man, after the diagnosis, he took his life by hanging himself. And moving on, NEC has released timetable for CBC and 844 exams. All schools have until September the 9th to download and administer examinations under the competency-based curriculum. The grade 6 summative assessment will see learners assessed in English, Kiswahili, mathematics, home science, agriculture, science and technology, creative arts, moral and life skills, and physical and health education. You can find that on page 11 of the standards. And back to matters polls, there's a report revealing counties where women were assaulted. We had cases of them being intimidated, their billboard being defaced. And a study by FIDA shows Kitui had the highest number of sexual harassment cases. Kajiado topped in physical assault, while cyber bullying was highest. Not in Nairobi, not in Mombasa, not in Nakuru, not in Uasin Gishu, but in Siaya. Several women were sexually assaulted, while many suffered verbal abuse before, during, and after the general election. Is something that FIDA urges the government to investigate, and also something that, of course, Kenyans were looking yesterday, and they saw something that they had not seen since 9th of August, the presence of the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, who was in Mombasa yesterday. They talk about President enjoys ice cream in first public appearance since the election, together with outgoing Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho, Governor-elect Abdul Swamad Nasir, among others. There you can see them at the Makadara Road. They're walking, and actually you can see how the President has donned his casual wear. Flour exporters now turn to ships to cut costs. The Russia-Ukraine war has made a lot of issues when it comes to the export and importation of a lot of things from the West. And now Kenya is trying as much as possible. We had a story on how they are doing in order to ensure that the avocados do get to Russia by using ships and using countries like Armenia so that our products can get there. Russia being one of the countries that is leading in the country when it comes to our avocados. And a quick look at the People Daily, the headline, why Raila wants results rejected, more or less the same question on the Supreme Court. And as I had alluded to earlier, is that today we are expecting to see IEBC and the first respondent, who is William Samoei Ruto. Inside the vote recount in 41 polling stations reveals missing blank form 34As. Allow me not to repeat that. Also, Vicky had checked on that. And something else, eyes on Chebukati's conduct at Bomas. That is something that also was raised in the petition yesterday. Something else that Vicky we had not touched on is on the drought in the country. No thrift locals in urgent need of food assistance. And there's something that I had seen earlier. Red Cross has started offloading some of the animals, the camels, the cows and the goats for farmers. As in Kajiado, drought leaves 600,000 in Kajiado facing starvation. That just underscores the current situation that the country is currently facing and could also be blamed on why the inflation rate is quite high. Moving on, of course, the governors are slowly but surely picking up pace. Mungaro picks new team to replace Kingi. We see Will Nasir walk the talk of Mombasa port restoration. Those are some pertinent questions being asked there in some of the reviews. We are also moving on inside, talking about more or less like the petition and some rekindling memories of the 2017 petition as well. And going back to counties, Kihika orders release of patients detained over bills. This is something that we had carried also in our news items, with about 5 million shillings that had accrued since the year 2020, and also promised to better the health infrastructure in the newest city in the country. Households feel the pinch. Are you? As inflation hits 8.5%. The data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics show the measure of cost of living rose in August from 8.3% in July to 8.5%, a 62-month high. Of course, the drought and the politics do always polarize the economy, of which we are hoping that after this is done, we can pick up, and the economy will also pick up as well. More or less, we have a lot of companies posting huge profit margins. Wow, it's quite a contradiction. Vicky, we have 8.5% inflation rate. The companies are making billions in profits. I think they should be helping our Kenyan economy as well with the tricks, so that we may try and have our inflation in check. And of course, in sports, also, just let me quickly mention this: our fastest man in Africa, that happens to be Africa and Commonwealth champion Ferdinand Omanyala. Yesterday, he was at the World Championship. He was beaten to second place by World Championship silver medalist Marvin Brasse in the 100 meters at the World Athletics Continental Tour. And going to the EPL, Arsenal. Some teams won, but Arsenal, Vicky, Arsenal won. 2-1. Don't know whether you know that. 2 goes to 1. We are still at the top of the table.
We're still at the top of the table, unbeaten.
Yeah, unbeaten.
We're doing well. We're doing well.
Yeah,
Kuna team fulani, well, I don't want to mention the name.
Yes.
Doing so badly.
Yeah. We are trying.
Doing so badly, but that is the nature of football.
Yeah.
EPL can be so ruthless and unforgiving.
And that was why it's the most loved and most watched league in the world.
Yes.
Because it's very spontaneous.
It's spontaneous. It has got a definite timetable. And, without football, I think, as men, we can live a very bad life for the weekend,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yes, Arsenal, viva.
Viva.
Yeah.
Back to you, Vicky.
Thank you so much. All right. So far, let's just take a quick break. And of course, Wakili Eliud Ngugi is an advocate of the High Court. He's already in studio, and we just want to make sense of what happened yesterday. Of course, not going into the merits of what was discussed, an overview for the benefit of you there at home, and for us to just understand what we should expect today, tomorrow, and even the coming days at the Supreme Court. That and much more coming up shortly after this break.
Step away from the cooker. I don't want you burning the whole house down.
I don't remember you teaching me how to cook anything in my life.
Brother!
Nick is more trustworthy than Kathy.
I would even put Kathy and trustworthy in the same sentence.
Kathy seems to have some kind of sentimental attachment to J&J.
I come here often than you do.
Kufanya nini?
I work closely with Glenn.
Oh, okay. Glenn, yeah. Glenn.
Ulikuwa unafikiria ni Kathy?
Nani anifanyia interview? Na majaibe na mashoka ziko wapi? Leo hakuna kazi yako, utakuja next week.
You will only find peace and forgiveness when you confess what you've done. You can't keep hiding it.
Ileana, will we meet again?
Of course.
Why were you talking to the new partner of this hotel?
What? He's the new partner?
Ever.
Stop it, Nuria!
My goodness.
And if they happen to allow me to get close to them and be a part of their lives, I will be delighted.
Have some good news for you. We're officially dating.
What's up, party people? They call me DJ Coljax. Now be sure to catch me live on KBC Channel 1 each and every Friday, right here on KBC Channel 1 from 10:30 p.m. and each and every Saturday from 11 p.m.
You're rocking with the best in the business. It's DJ Coljax.
As I play you nothing but the best in pro.
And welcome back. Now, I know you expect a lot from the Supreme Court today. Today is day 2, and Ruto's lawyers will have their time before the seven judges of the Supreme Court to defend what was submitted yesterday by the lawyers there. We had got Philip Murgor, James Orengo, Paul Nyamodi. We had got Willis Otieno, Kenyatta, and other lawyers who represented the petitioners. And in the studio, I have got Advocate of the High Court, Eliud Ngugi, who is here to help us make sense of what happened yesterday and perhaps what you should expect today and the coming days. So, Kili, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy new month.
Yes, exactly. Yes. It's a new month, by the way. We should expect much moving forward as a nation.
Yes, we expect so much. If, for example, the Supreme Court upholds, we expect that there will be a public holiday this month.
Yes, chances are, yes.
Yes.
Let's start from a different angle. The president appeared yesterday for the first time in 3 weeks.
Yes.
And he appeared, he was in casual... we all know how Mombasa is, of course, in his long-sleeved and, checked shirt, in some jeans there and white sport shoes. And it all seemed that he was just in a happy mood.
Yes, he seemed to be very happy. And I think they were coming from a hotel called Barca.
Yes, to do lunch.
Where they sell biryani.
Exactly.
And I saw a number of politicians right behind him, some even from Nairobi. The likes of women rep-elect Esther Passaris was actually there, and I believe Sabina Chege was also there.
Babu Owino.
So it didn't just look like just a random day where the president was down at the coast, but I think there was a meeting. Yes,
there was a meeting actually, because from the sources, he held a meeting with elected leaders, more so those allied to the Azimio, at the governor's offices, county offices, not even at White State House in Mombasa, State Lodge or State House. He went straight to the county offices where, according to the reports, they didn't expect him, and boom, there he was. He walked in.
I believe they expected him, because my reading of this is that he may have been in Mombasa during the Monday postponed election, mini election that happened in Mombasa. And so they might, all the delegates from the party, from the Azimio party, quite a number of people might have been in Mombasa, and this might have just not been a surprise. They all knew, and probably were there in celebration of the election of a new governor of Mombasa, who happens to be in the ODM party, which is part of Azimio.
Yeah.
Yes.
But to say an interesting bit is that he's never spoken about elections. Even the normal press briefing that our reporters used to ask, the grabbed interviews, how was it, how was the process, he didn't do that even after voting. Up to now, he's kept mum.
I believe he has very good reasons, and we also may speculate why he may not have spoken about the election, being the fact that he was supporting a candidate who may not have won or declared yet, and so maybe that's the reason why he has not mentioned anything to do with the election. But also, being a president who is already leaving power, we do not expect him to say much, because maybe he's preparing for his retirement, and we might be shocked that his retirement might be very quiet, whereby he might not be engaging in any political issues in this country. Yeah.
So that was just it. I mean, people can say that you go to Mombasa for holiday, there's nothing serious in Mombasa, so we shouldn't read too much from there.
Well, yeah, you shouldn't. And having in mind that it was a long electioning process, whereby he was also involved in the campaign, moving all over around the country, he definitely needed that break. And we are proud to have a beach and
some fresh air,
some holidaying place in Mombasa where he could actually be resting. Yes.
Let me just vouch, Mr. President, you should go to Rusinga Island, that side of Homa Bay County. Very nice place. Ask me and I will tell you. Okay, a lot happened at the Supreme Court yesterday. We had, a lot of submissions from different lawyers putting their best foot forward to convince the judges on what transpired on 9th of August. What do you think stood out yesterday? Starting with the submissions, what really stood out in terms of the presentation, the demeanor of the judges as compared to 2017?
One of the things that stood out yesterday was that the judges were asking the same questions the public has been asking for a while. And I can recall that one of the judges, Justice Lenaola, actually asked how come, for example, the 4 commissioners who actually had a media briefing only came out to complain about the whole process of election at the 11th hour, which I believe has been a question in the public domain.
Yes.
And so that was one. We had a passionate presentation by one of my friends, Willis Otieno, whereby he got into a song while doing his submissions, and you could see sweat dripping from his face because of how passionate he was in his submission. And so that stood out, and I believe I've seen quite a number of conversation online about that submission by my senior counsel Willis Otieno. And we also had Omtata doing his submissions and bringing out the numbers and doing the on-screen presentation about the numbers having some differences. So that stood out, and mostly also having the lawyers for Honorable Raila Odinga and Martha Karua bringing out their case on that first day of hearing basically brought out some of the issues that may have happened. We brought out allegations which we actually expect that the respondents, the IBC, the chairman of IBC, and Honorable William Ruto's lawyers will be able to bring out to respond to today. So we expect that kind of an answer, but they brought up some of the issues which I hope will actually be looked into by the judges. But you could see that the judges were quite firm when they were asking these questions and bringing out these questions. And this is quite an interesting place to be, where you're able to see that the judges are interrogating some of these submissions.
Because even in their own wisdom, they also want to understand on behalf of the common mwananchi asking the same questions.
They want to understand clearly, and they want the advocates who are doing the submissions to bring out some of those issues. They have questions which they want them answered, so that when they retire or they go to actually write that judgment, I believe from Saturday to later in the afternoon on Monday, they'll be able to actually bring out a very concise and well-written judgment.
And of course, something that also stood out is the presence of the ballot boxes, which were being the scrutiny bit of it. They were going into the details of the forms from different. This is something that never happened even in 2017.
And this is something which basically will help, because at the end of this process, whereby they are scrutinizing these ballot papers and even going into the ballot boxes, because there's a procedure outlined by the Elections Act whereby you are supposed to put the election material, and they're actually bringing out now, reopening these ballot boxes, and they're able to see what really happened at the polling stations for those 40 or so polling centers which were actually allowed for them to scrutinize. So this is going to help them to actually come up with a report that the judges will be able to rely upon when making their judgment.
Let's talk about some of the areas, not getting into the details, of course. The issue, the big arguments about the numbers, where there was, the petitioners argued that the number who voted moving target, alleged 140,000, uncounted for votes sufficient for a runoff. Of course, there was an issue of technology, the process, IEBC divisions. When you look at the process, this again, something that was highlighted in 2017. And actually, it was the main reason people went back to the ballot. And again, it surfaced this time around. Not getting into details, the issue of process. It seems to be a hard nut to crack in any electoral cycle in this country.
It is a process, and we are hoping that Because the court is fully relying on the Court of Appeal decision of Minor KI, which actually brought out the process of a declaration of results. And it actually says that the results declared at a polling station are final.
Yes.
And so then, what do we comply with the whole process, whereby after we declare, you're supposed to transport materials to the next constituency tallying center. Then from tallying center, you're supposed to take it to the presidential or national tallying center. So this question of the process, how is the process being done? Can it be verified? Is it a simple process? Can it be also a free and fair process? So the court is trying to see whether we have met that threshold, and this is quite important because we are hoping that they are going to actually come up with key principles that we can still follow to make sure that we do not come back to challenge elections, maybe because of maybe technology. So they'll come out and actually express these issues to do with whether it's a PDF, because that came up yesterday.
Yes.
Whether you're supposed to
PDF or JPEG.
JPEG.
Exactly.
When it comes to uploading the form, the form 34 is, does it come out as a JPEG or PDF, which is actually something they need to actually give a decision and direction on. So those are some of the issues on the process, and I believe this being the Supreme Court, and being the highest court of the land, it's able to make what we call jurisprudence on the process. How should the process be?
Exactly.
Yes.
And even the issue of the division, in the commission, they raised. Actually, it was a question which was given to the lawyers to give their answers during a rejoinder. At what point did the commissioners stop working as a team? Because all through they were together. Then all of a sudden now there are some divisions. Perhaps somebody would argue that the divisions in the IEBC would not bring that kind of a good picture in running an election, and even to other commissions in the country, because we have got different commissions in the country. So how do commissions run, basically? Yes.
That's a very interesting question, because one of the advocates tried alluding to or comparing the IBC commission to the Supreme Court,
that was
having the same number of judges, 7 judges, and the commission having the same number of commissioners.
Yes.
And he was stopped right there, because there is how the commission runs separately from how the Supreme Court basically runs.
Yes, because the rules and of structure and of the two bodies are different.
They are all different, and so this is quite something that needs to come out on how basically commissions run. There was an issue that was brought out by my senior Paul Nyamodi on the issue on the commission in itself, and on the gazettement of the presiding officer, presidential presiding returning officer.
Yes.
And that's quite an issue that actually the judges and even the lawyers for the other side are expected to actually answer, because the gazettement was basically backed by an act or by the laws in place. So when the chairman of the commission went ahead and gazetted that he's a returning officer, then the question on whether he relied on the right sections of the law comes up. And so we hope that that will also be determined on the whole, on whether the chairman of the commission is also the returning officer, the national returning officer.
Because then how should it be? I think that's a question that the judge, the Ruto's lawyers will respond to, on who should declare the final result. Because there's something I also I got interesting: result and results. And I think that was expressed by Willis Otieno.
Yes.
Result and results. I think for some minute I was in law school, but I said no, let me just stick to my lane.
There's a whole interpretation.
Yes.
Interpretation of words, and where, and for example, the plural and the singular just makes a whole difference in law. And that's what basically I believe the lawyers are here to bring out, and the judges are here to determine whether a singular term,
yes,
can also be interpreted as a plural term. So results and results can also be
are completely different.
Yes.
Let's talk about the issue of the ballot boxes which were brought there. I don't know whether it was just a cross-section of the ballot boxes from different counties, different polling stations across the country, or it was just meant to bring a picture of what happened. But really, when there's that bit of removing the ballot papers from the box, recounting them and doing the scrutiny and giving the final report, one would argue that what happened across other constituencies across the country. Can Kenyans now go back and say, if only those ballot boxes were brought to the Supreme Court, now we can easily say we can bring a blanket judgment that everything was a sham?
These were, first of all, the 45 ballot boxes which have been taken for scrutiny are actually from all over. Yes. They are samples from the different corners of this country. There are some ballot boxes from Nandi County. There are some from Mombasa County. There are others from, I believe, Kirinyaga area, Central Province. And so this is supposed to bring out, to give a sample of what basically happened all over the country. And this should be able to actually portray the picture of the electioning process and the voting process and how the filling of these ballot boxes and the tallying went on. And so we should be able to be comfortable and to know and to see from this sampling that the process was, whether the process was properly done or not. Yes.
Let's talk about the importance of Form 34A, because that's where it all begins. Because in all those ballot boxes, I beg your pardon, Form 34A would translate to Form 34B, then it goes on and on and on and on until you get the final form at the National Tallying Center. How important is this Form 34A at the initial stage?
The Form 34A is very important. From the 2017 case and also from Minor Kiai case, Court of Appeal case, what this gave, the power given to Forms 34A was that these are the final results. And that the declaration at the polling center, whereby they actually collect from the different streams. So you find a center has, let's say, 4 or 5 streams. And we collect, and then the Form 34A is basically one that says that in this polling center, in this area, this is what the results are.
Yes.
We declare the president from that point, and they're expected to now upload this and send it to the National Tallying Center using the, send it to the National Tallying Center. So this is quite an important form because that's the final result. So what happens after that is that they transport and take the 34A from the polling center and take it to the constituency polling center, whereby, again, they now fill the 34B. So the 34B is from the different polling center, let's say in, for example, in Nairobi. So they will take, the 34B is actually the one form portraying the different, let's say, wards around Nairobi, which I believe are 14 or 16, thereabout. So they take those 34As and reduce them into this one form called 34B, showing the presidential vote.
Yes.
And so it doesn't change much because the key form that will be looked at the National Tallying Center, because now at the constituency tallying center, they take the 34B, and again, after they fill, we transport it again to the National Tallying Center, which in this case was Bomas of Kenya. And now at the Bomas of Kenya, they will take, for example, all the constituency results or the 34Bs and reduce them to 34C. But now the 34C, before it's actually finalized, it has to be tallied together with the 34As from all over.
Right.
So they have to verify whether the numbers appearing on 34As are actually similar to the 34Bs, and then I'll conclude by filling the 34C, which basically shows the leading presidential candidate. And so the 34A is quite important, because that's the one that is transported, or rather not even transmitted through the system in itself. So the results at the polling center become final because they go to the national tallying center.
So that is this where the question of JPEG or PDF?
Yes, this is where the question of JPEG and PDF comes in, because there are questions about someone intercepting the 34A from the polling center and changing the numbers, then again sending the same. And this was that's a question that was asked by Justice William Ouko, formerly the president of the Court of Appeal. He was asking if then you are able to intercept the 34A and someone else is transporting and the forms tend to be different. Help me clarify on this issue. How are you able to get different forms, yet one was transported by road and the other one was transported through the system? So he was seeking clarification on whether there could be a way whereby one is able to actually intercept the transmission of 34As. Which is something that will come out.
You know, one again, there's that report of the audit report by KPMG, and you know, it was alleged that the numbers were not okay in some areas, and IBC did not take note of the report from KPMG. Then the question someone would argue is, at what point should we now take the report from KPMG, take it to the IBC, and reflect the national numbers that will reflect at the ballot papers, or the number of voters who, okay, let me make it simple. We have the report from KPMG, IBC got their numbers, and then we are going to election. So which numbers do we use? From KPMG or the one that IBC has?
That's a question that needs to be clarified, but I believe the numbers which should be used is the commissions, because the commissions already did is a mandated body to conduct an election. But again, it's a clarification that maybe we shouldn't get into the details of it, and we expect to see the feedback from the respondents today, because they are going to come back today and actually paint or give us their story. Give us their story about, or their response basically, but in simple terms, their story on how the electioning process took place, and whether whatever allegations that have been made by the petitioners are true or not. So they are going to come back and give us their side of the story. And today is quite an important day to actually follow through the proceedings, because yesterday we may have had the submissions from the petitioners, and we may have raised questions, and if the respondents are not able to answer some of these questions which were raised yesterday, then it basically means that probably we uphold those questions, or they actually are raising very important issues which now the Supreme Court will be able to use to determine whether the election was properly done.
Yes. We should expect a heated day today at the Supreme Court. Of course, the respondents will have their time to be heard. What else should we expect?
We would expect that the lawyers are going to do their best. The respondents' lawyers are going to do their best. And in this case, I'm thinking about the former Attorney General, who is actually part of the team of the respondents, or leading the IBC lawyers. So I expect him to bring out his expertise and to not Honorable, or rather, Senior Counsel Givo Muigai is a professor who has actually represented IBC before, who has actually taken part in these processes before. And so we expect that he's going to be able to come out and do his submissions in his usual poetic way, in a very clear way, to actually respond to some of those issues which were raised yesterday. We also expect that the judges will still ask those hard questions to the lawyers of the respondents.
Were they hard? The questions seemed so simple.
I don't think they were simple, because
from a layman's point of view, someone would argue that that question sounds so simple, but hey, be careful.
Well, we expect them to ask both simple and hard questions, but mostly even the hard questions, to also be able to guide these respondents' lawyers to come out and actually, for example, answer some of these questions about the commission, which has been alleged to have been divided. So we expect to hear what they have to say about that commission. And the mere fact that we have lawyers from the IBC coming in to represent IBC, and the individual lawyers who are representing the individual respondents are also expected to come in. It's quite going to be interesting, because if the two sets of lawyers are going to represent the different parties, we expect to see whether they are going to have a similar response or it's going to differ.
I was a bit particular in terms of time management. Everybody was given an equal opportunity to present their case. And perhaps from the legal aspect, what is time? What does it mean? Anytime you're given time, Ngugi, you have got 2 minutes.
Time is quite important, because one, you're expected to compress your submissions or your presentation to the judges. Compress it in a way that you're able to clarify everything in a limited amount of time. So, one, you need to be so good at issuing your points, responding, for example, to the issues which were raised by the Chief Justice at the beginning, during pre-trial on Monday, or rather on Tuesday. You need to be able to respond to those issues, while at the same time having the various questions which were asked yesterday and were raised by the petitioners. You need also to respond to them. So it's a very tricky situation whereby your submissions should be able to be comprehensive, and at the same time should be able to answer all these issues which have been raised. And at the same time, you should give your best. And there's the whole analogy whereby you should be able to clearly present your points. And different ways of presenting these points sometimes may be through poetry, for example, or song, like we saw with Wakili Willie Sotieno. And so how do you make sure?
There's a song already. A DJ has done a song about that. I'll look for it and play it here. There's a song already out for that.
So you need to make sure that as you do your presentation, you enhance all these things and still adhere to the timeline given to you. Because the judges are likely to stop you, and by the time they are stopping you, you need to have finished expressing your issues.
You know, as lawyers, again, when you look at the whole process, when it was done, when it all started, until now where we are, somebody would argue that there is that sense of time, limited time, which was also raised yesterday, that the time that was allocated for hearing of a presidential petition is rather short. But then lawyers, the Supreme Court is also time-bound, that they must deliver based on what they have. I'm trying to argue my case as well. What if the petitioners and the respondents do not have an equal opportunity of time? For example, you have got 3 hours, and when you come, you request for more time from the court. what would happen now from the petitioner who had already submitted their side of the story?
We're given a chance to come back and do what they're calling a rejoinder, which will happen tomorrow. So yesterday they raised their issues.
Yes.
Today the respondents or the IBC lawyers and Honorable William Ruto's lawyers and Chebukati's lawyers are going to respond to these issues, and they may come in and punch holes and create scenarios which actually now the petitioner's lawyers tomorrow, although limited, they will need to come and clarify some of those issues to seal those holes which are going to be punched and created today. And so the process in itself just allows them to, it may not be equal time, but there's a right to be heard for every party, and for you to come back and do a rejoinder or come and actually seal the holes which may have been, which will be created today by the IBC, Chebukati, and Honorable William Ruto's lawyers.
I'm told we are going for a break, but before then, do you really think Kenyans are getting, value from the Supreme Court? Because this happened in 2013, 2017, and now 2022.
Yes. One of the values that Kenyans are getting is this clarification of this whole process. Number two, the other thing that is coming out from the Supreme Court is just having the finality on the dispute resolution, whereby if you feel that you're not happy with the results, then you're given a chance to actually have that heard in a court of law. So Kenyans are getting that value, because what options would we have had if we did not have a Supreme Court, whereby I feel that the process was not properly done. And so the Supreme Court has become that place whereby we are able to determine and answer issues of elections, presidential elections, in finality. And therefore, after that, we expect that the decision will be taken by both parties, and they are going to accept the decision of the Supreme Court. And so it's a good place. We are getting that kind of value from the Supreme Court. We are also getting the other thing called just the other thing being the fact that the Supreme Court is able to create jurisprudence, is able to create a way on the future issues which may come up, and create a solution for them. So the Supreme Court is quite important in this case. And so I expect by the year maybe 2040 something, whereby we are going to have many other elections, that the process is going to be smoother. The process is not going to be marred by irregularities, because the Supreme Court will have already set a way and direction on how to deal with some of these irregularities. And so if, for example, the voter turnout is X, by the year maybe 2040 something, we'll be able to know what do we do if the voter turnout is at this number. So it will set out a way. And so that's the beauty of having the Supreme Court.
Let's take a break, but when we come back, you'll start with this question. Is going to the Supreme Court after every general election a blessing in disguise or a curse to the growth of our democracy in our country? Should Kenyans embrace it in terms of developing governance and democracy in our country? And whichever way it goes, how should Kenyans receive or handle the cases at the Supreme Court? When we come back, let's take a break, and when we come back, we're still having this. And remember, in a few minutes, we'll also be joining our colleagues at the Supreme Court, that is Ben Chumba and Sarafina, to give us an update, and later on head to the Supreme Court at 9 a.m. Let's take a break. We'll be back.
sana to the Second Chance TV game show.
Tough questions.
Virunga National Park is located within which mountain ranges?
Aberdare.
Aberdare? Is that your final answer?
Tough challenges.
3, 2, 1, go!
It's a survival for the smartest.
10 seconds to go. Who is the current president of Malawi?
Wrong answer.
That is the wrong answer. Does it border to the east? Nakuru County. Nakuru County, you get 2,000 bob.
Premiering soon on Channel 1.
You will only find peace and forgiveness when you confess what you've done. You can't keep hiding it.
Ileana, will we meet again?
Of course. Why were you talking to the new partner of this hotel?
What? He's the new partner?
Never.
Stop it, Nuria!
My goodness.
And if they happen to allow me to get close to them and be a part of their lives, I will be delighted.
Have some good news for you. We're officially dating.
Akili, Akili, this is Akili.
Hey there, friends. What time is it?
What should Akili say to greet little lion?
Wow!
Can you read the word?
Oh! Don't worry, Bush Baby. You can draw it again.
Akili, Akili, this is Akili. She has a secret.
Tell us!
When the sun goes down, Akili goes to sleep, and she enters a world where all the animals speak.
You really decided to marry her. Earlier you said your maids were all irresponsible, so you replaced them all in one swoop. Then you sent your own soldiers to guard Crescent Hall.
Lily! Lily, where are you?
I can't remain here. Don't search for me. Suzanne told me if I jumped into it, I'd go back to where I belonged.
Yani ina maana nchi ama mji ikiwa na amani, unakuta hata nchi zingine zinawadhamini, zinawafadhili sana, zinawaaminia.
Muislamu wa kisawasawa ni yule ambaye anadumisha amani, anaepukana na maneno ambayo yanaweza kupelekea kuvurugika kwa amani, na vitendo vyake pia huwa vinahusika na kuhifadhi amani.
Ukiniangalia mimi ni mtu kununua second hand?
You look second hand yourself right now.
Mimi nakaondieka. Niangalie hivi, nakaondieka.
Not with those. Maybe with the tummy. No.
But Tosha.
Huyu hata tujuani. Do you know me?
Are baba.
We don't know each other.
Iko saying lines hapo.
When ni husband ama ni houseboy? House kwa husband. Nini wewe inakusumbua?
Wako ha?
Yes.
Jambo.
Fine, thank you. Oh my God. No. Let me talk the truth and accept the devil, please. Please.
Babyface.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like that. Yes.
Babyface.
Yeah.
Ulionaje kazi yangu, skills zangu za uzaji zikwaje?
You are excellent.
Wewe mzee. Hatuko hapa mchezo.
Ni kweli vile hata nani.
Sasa ukisha si uongee vile unaongea.
Welcome back. And just before we head straight to the Supreme Court, where the real action will begin, with Wakili Eliud Ngugi here, just trying to make sense of what really happens at the Supreme Court and what you should expect today, tomorrow, and in the coming days. 5th of September should be the D-Day when we'll have the final ruling from the landed judges. Okay, so before we went on a break, I asked you a question. How should Kenyans treat these issues, the process of going to the Supreme Court? For the third time, there's a petition at the Supreme Court challenging a presidential election. So how should Kenyans treat it? Is it a blessing in disguise in terms of strengthening governance and democracy in our country?
It's two ways. It's actually a blessing in this one way, that we are able to take our disputes to a body, and this body is able to determine whether the process has been done in a fair manner. And so it's a blessing in that way, because you have a chance whereby if you have very correct evidence, if you have enough evidence,
yes,
you are able to actually raise your issue somewhere, and you're given a second chance. So that's one of the blessings. But then maybe why I would think it's not a blessing is because sometimes we may be delaying this justice to the people who actually showed up on the voting day, and they actually went ahead. For example, I presume in the near future, whereby Kenyans will have an 80% or 70% turnout. They may go out there and vote. Out of, for example, now this year where we had 22 million people turning up for to vote, or rather who are registered to vote, and only 14 million and something showed up. I perceive a situation whereby in the near future we may have, let's say, 18 million people whose voice would want to be heard, yet the number 2 person decides to challenge this election, and once they challenge it, they'll be holding the 18 million Kenyans who may have elected a party to become a president. They'll be holding him hostage, and this process may become a hindrance to justice maybe for those people. But the blessing may carry so much weight because we have a place to go to. And number 2, when it comes to democracy in our country, this process is creating public rules which we can be able to refer to in the near future. It's actually answering questions which have been there for us as Kenyans to be able to answer on what may not be foreseen in the near future. So like one of the examples that I note in the process of electioning, what happens if the chairman of the commission does not turn up at that last minute? That's a gap that actually may need to be clarified when it comes to that. Or like what happened this year, what happens when the commission is divided? And so we use this example of these struggles that we are having as a growing democracy to be able to determine the future of which actually contributes to the democracy of this country. So in the near future, probably in the next election in 2027, we are likely to be able to have an answer whereby, for example, let's say the commissioners are not in agreement, or rather the question which is currently at the Supreme Court is the issue on the questions to do with whether how is the tallying process done and how is the verification process done. So the Supreme Court is now answering that question, and so in the near future we will not have to ask that question. We'll just refer to 2022 decision by the Supreme Court, and we'll be able to know the role of the commission. Do they all have the same role? How do they have procedure? Maybe they may even go out and recommend that we create regulation on the duty of each commissioner's job. So it's quite a good process. The Supreme Court is actually a good place to actually create, number 1, laws. Number 2, it creates what we call jurisprudence, which basically is a case that can be binding to the other lower courts. So if today the governors in the different places who are unhappy with the whole process go to court, and I know there are some places where the governors have said that they are going to challenge the election, the decision that will be made on Monday by the Supreme Court will be binding to the high courts in these areas, and they'll be able, as a point of reference, and they'll be able to actually direct maybe and answer some of these questions that these governors are going to be raising in their petitions. Yeah.
Okay, so as we come to a close, what should we expect today? Moving, of course, today is the Ruto's lawyers to defend what was submitted yesterday. So basically, what should we expect?
We should expect that the lawyers are going to answer the questions which were raised yesterday. They are going. The IBC lawyers are also able to answer, for example, the question on the 140 votes which was raised yesterday as well, and we should also be able to also hear what they have to say about the role of the chairperson of the commission. They're going to answer to that, and we're going to also have even the issue of the commission, their answer on what they think the role of the different commissioners is, and whether the chairman of the IBC commission came up with some rules to make himself the returning officer, the national returning officer. So they will be able to come back and answer these questions today, and maybe even tell us whether, in their view, the election was free, fair, and verifiable in their view and in your take.
Okay.
So they'll be able to come out and actually, since IBC may be actually the people who have the material and have been able to swear affidavits on the process, they will be able to also tell us whether the process was intercepted, the process of transmitting the Form 34As was intercepted, and why they think maybe that the case raised by the petitioner maybe does not hold water.
All right. Okay. All right. So a few minutes ago, you saw some of the live footage, some images from the Supreme Court. Of course, the action is almost getting ready. There, the big battle, the Supreme battle, call it, and the lawyers will be taking it to the on what was submitted yesterday, and of course whether they're, the first respondent here, who is Dr. William Ruto, who is the president-elect, will be sworn in, or the general election will be quashed altogether. All right, so that is Sarafina Robi. Sarafina, good morning. It will be a very busy day ahead of you at the Supreme Court. We know yesterday that the lawyers made the best of the time that they had. Perhaps just a quick overview of what happened and what you should expect there. Sarafina, over to you.
Indeed, a very good morning, Victor. As you've mentioned, you're coming to you live from the Milimani Law Court by the Supreme Court, aside to hear the presidential election petition, which kicked off yesterday, and thereof today is the second day whereby we expect to get to see most of the respondents mentioned in this case to give their submissions, given that yesterday, which was the first day of the hearing, we got to see most of the petitioners, actually all the petitioners get to give their submissions, and also the first respondents, who are the first four commissioners who are in support of the presidential election petition, who include Juliana Cherera, Irene Masit, Wanderi, as well as Justice Nyang'aya, who got to give their submissions yesterday evening, and therefore today we expect to get to see submissions from the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, as well as the chair of Wafula Chebukati. And later on in the day, we also get submissions from William Ruto in regards to the presidential election petition that was filed by Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua, alongside other petitions. And so far, we got to see that out of the 9 petitions that were filed, 7 were consolidated and 2 were struck out, with the 2 which included one that was filed by Moses Kuria and the other that had been filed by Reuben Kigame, therefore leaving about 7 petitions that that were consolidated and about all the petitions that had been filed by the 7 petitioners were heard yesterday, and key issues emerging from this were tied to the 9 issues which the 7-judge bench of the Supreme Court got to say that it's going to focus on during the hearing. Some of the issues that came out yesterday were one of them raised by most of the petitioners, but the person who was declared as the president-elect, who is William Ruto, did not get the 50% plus 1 as required by the Constitution. And most of them were saying that the election process did not meet the requirements of Article 81 of the Constitution for a free and fair election as required by the Constitution. That is just one of the lawyers working in representing one of the petitioners, who is Raila Odinga and Martha Karua. Philip Morgor just walking into the hall where the hearing is going on, and now we're seeing another lawyer representing Kenya Kwanza walking in, who is Kithure Kindiki, who was also one of the chief agents of the Kenya Kwanza coalition during the presidential election petition. During the election, the general election that just concluded, as I was saying, that some of the issues that came out yesterday is that they were saying that William Ruto, who was declared as the president-elect, did not attain the 50% plus 1 requirement, and also the election did not meet Article 81, the requirements of Article 81 of the Constitution for a free and fair and transparent election. And also we got to see that they were saying that Regulation 87 of the Elections Act should be considered unconstitutional since it's not consistent with the Constitution, getting to cite Article 138(3)(c) of the Constitution, as well as Article 138(10), saying that Article 138(3)(c) of the Constitution calls upon the Commission in consultation to all of them are supposed to tally and verify the results before they're declared. And also Article 138(10) of the Constitution then is the only one that requires them to get to the chair to get to announce. That is just one of the lawyers, Professor Ben Sihanya, walking in also into the hall, into the ceremonial hall, whereby the petition is being heard by the 7-judge bench. And also we've gotten to see other issues emerging out of these in regards to the servers and also the scrutiny, the servers, as well as the scrutiny of some of that is one of the other lawyers also walking in, some of the lawyers representing petitioners. That is also Yes, Kioko Kilokumi. That is Wakili Kioko Kilokumi working in. Kioko Kilokumi is representing Kenya Kwanza, and we'll get to see the submissions that I'll get to give today. Just some of the lawyers, a battery of lawyers. I've seen also one of the other lawyers walking in, Kiragu Kimani. Kiragu Kimani is representing Kenya Kwanza, Senior Counsel Kiragu Kimani, and so many other lawyers. We've just seen lawyers representing the Kenya Kwanza coalition working in, Kioko Kilokumi. We've also seen Fred Ngatia, and now you've seen Senior Counsel Kiragu Kimani working in. Given the hearing is supposed to start at around 9, given that now we have 9 minutes to the start of the hearing. So I'm going to hand you back to Victor. I'm handing it back to you, Victor, as we now wait for the hearing to kick off here at the Milimani Law Court, whereby the Supreme Court is hearing the presidential election petition. Back to you, Victor.
Thank you so much. I know you have a long day ahead of you there together with the entire team. Please keep forth for us and give us the details in our subsequent bulletins. And of course, be sure to get that live coverage exactly the next few minutes, 9 or thereabout, at the Supreme Court. That's Milimani, where the sitting is taking place. And we'll be giving all that from the Supreme Court. Okay, so Wakili, just give your final remarks in under one minute.
Well, I applaud the Supreme Court and our Kenyan people who have actually remained calm, and some of the leaders who have said they will respect the decision of the Supreme Court. And so as we await the decision of the Supreme Court come Monday afternoon or Monday evening, I hope that we'll maintain our peace and that, again, the Supreme Court is going to create laws which are going to guide us as a country. And so we look forward to a very calm country. We look forward to our leaders respecting the decision of the Supreme Court, and whichever direction the Supreme Court rules, that life will move on. Yeah. And we'll move on with our lives.
Okay, a quick one. The petitioners raised their concern yesterday, and today is another set of lawyers defending the respondent. So what happens tomorrow then?
What happens tomorrow is that the petitioners will have a right to come and respond to some of the issues which will be raised today by the respondents' lawyers. Yes. And so what we expect is for them to come and be able to seal some of the loopholes.
The so-called rejoinder?
Yeah, rejoinder.
Right.
They'll be able to come back and actually seal those holes which will be punched today by the IBC and President-elect William Ruto's lawyers. Yes.
Okay. And then now the judges will retire. Let me ask you, when they retire to make their judgment, do they sit in the same room? I don't know whether you're privy to this. Do they sit in the same room doing, like in a courtroom, or everybody will have their own space somewhere?
I actually had that conversation with one of my colleagues.
Yeah, what happened? Because at the end of the day, they will have to come with their different judgments.
What the conclusion was, because we are not privy to this information, is that they basically sit together and agree on the decision. We already have the assistants already typing out and probably doing the write-up already as the proceedings are going on. And we also have a court process being recorded. And so for the judges, they will actually meet together as the 7 of them, and they'll be able to actually agree. Then we are going to invite one of the assistants to come and brief them on their decision, and this assistant is able to actually now coordinate the writing of the whole judgment. Yes.
Okay. Those are live pictures from the Supreme Court of Kenya, where the action is almost about to begin. We've seen how time is of the essence. CJ Martha Koome says it's 9. They give it plus or minus, which is okay, around 2-3 minutes, and they begin. And we've seen them, that if your time is over, your mic automatically switches off. So I think that is something for us, even for us, we should buy and carry along with us even in our normal lives. So those are live pictures from the Supreme Court. I really wonder, Wakili, how intense it can get when your mic is on and you have got 15 minutes to submit and the judges are waiting for you to talk. The whole hall is pin drop quiet. What goes on? Do you feel some weakness on your knees?
I was in that courtroom on Monday. And
what's the mood like?
And it's actually very intimidating because the judges are able to say proceed, or they can tell you on that day. They actually told 2 of my colleagues to actually sit down.
Yes,
we need to make a ruling. And so it's quite intimidating. Secondly, you have the best of the best lawyers in that room. You have the senior counsels, which basically means that these are advocates who have practiced laws for over 50 years. Some of them, like senior counsel Paul Muite and
Roger, right?
Roger,
likes of Ngatia,
and
for
Ngatia,
example.
they have actually practiced law, and so and gentlemen, senior counsels like Gibu Muigai and Kioko Kilukumi. And Morgo, who have actually done this for many years. And so if they turn and look at you, they are able to actually even themselves intimidate you. And so if you are not
But that's the rule
prepared,
of the game anyway.
If you're not prepared to actually make your presentation, then you're going to stammer and you're going to become incoherent and not able to express yourself. And so it's a very, you actually feel the power in the room. When you're actually in that room, you feel that power, whereby, first of all, the judges are sitting above you. Good. So they are looking down on you, and you're looking up at them. And so that in itself just becomes, and then you have cameras around you, and you have the whole nation listening to you. So it's not an easy task to undertake.
Anyway, I think that's why I'm in the correct profession. I'm here because this is what I do. This is it. Finally, and again, some light moments we see in the courtrooms. I mean, it's never that serious, right?
It's never that serious, but also sometimes it's quite serious because one, the judges, remember, have power to actually cite, we call it cite you for contempt, or say that you are actually dishonoring the courtroom or dishonoring the judges. And they have power to actually put you in a cell. If, for example, you went in there and said irregular things or things which are not correct or maybe even insulted them, they actually have the power to actually order the police to actually put you inside and punish you. So there's a light moment which actually I believe allows you to ease up. So sometimes they're able to read and see that you're very tense, and so they may make a joke at you to just make you feel calm and find and actually settle down. But then this basically allows you to settle down when they actually make that light moment. Sometimes they may make the light moment, but maybe they are being sarcastic. So it's quite... you
have to read their minds as well.
You need to read their minds, but also you need to remember that you're there to work.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, it's 2 minutes to top of the hour, and as you can see on the top of, right in front of your screen there, those are live images and a clear indication that the judges are almost walking into the courtroom, and any minute from now we'll be having that live proceeding. Wakili, thank you so much for coming through. That is Wakili Eliud Ngugi, who is an advocate of the High Court. Meanwhile, my name is Victor Law. Let's head straight to the Supreme Court of Kenya for the live coverage of the big battle. Good morning.
To get Change Your Thinking Skizatune, dial star 811 star 961 hash.
When you change the quality of your thinking, you change the quality of your life. Sometimes instantly, just as positive words can make someone calm, smile or laugh, your thoughts will react to the world in real time. So, change the quality of your thinking.
Dial star 811 star 961 hash. Star 811 star 961 hash.
Hello there. Good boys gone bad. Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king clout chaser.
How does a gospel artist make money? Jaguar wept again.
Anaweza kuwa celeb, anaweza kuwa na followers, but it's a time for artists to make bank.
How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories.
They do not make...
Slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
Mashallah.
You sing about serious issues, it will not trend. If you sing about Abiambosi...
No!
Bahati hata kuwa na...
Asante sana mwenzangu Victor Olo, ukiwa upande wa kwanza wa studio hapo. Ndiyo kweli kabisa, tumeweza kujitayarisha kuletea mtazamaji matangazo ya moja kwa moja kutoka mahakama ya Milimani, ambapo kesi ya kuweza kusikilizwa, kesi ya Raila Odinga inaweza kusikilizwa katika mahakama ya Milimani, ambapo majaji 7 wa mahakama ya upeo wamekuwa wakisikiliza kesi hiyo hapo jana. Na hapo jana tuliweza kuona mawakili wanaowakilisha Raila Odinga wakiweza kuambia majaji kwamba uchaguzi wa rais mteule William Ruto haukuwa wazi na wa haki, kwa hivyo basi wangeweza kutaka utupiliwe mbali Leo pia mtazamaji, sasa tunatarajia mawakili wa William Ruto waweze kujitokeza kabisa na kuweza kueleza majaji ni kwa nini hawafai kusikia mambo ama madai